Hey, this is Alex. Welcome to my living room where we will unpack the ins and outs, the dilemmas, the questions that we have around brave leadership. This is me inviting you where I will share all my stories. I will tell it all. I will share stories that will break the mold. And I invite you to share yours. Today, we are focusing on silence versus voice. So I had a period in my leadership where I totally lost my voice. I had so many people around me telling me what was right, what was wrong, what was in, what was out, what was beautiful, what was ugly, that I totally lost my sense of knowing who I was. I totally lost my sense of leading with my values, and all I did was trying to please everyone. It went so far, I could not even decide on what I wanted to eat for lunch. I could not go out to pick, a candlelight because I couldn't choose what scent I wanted. I totally lost the capability to take decisions, and there was a very bad thing when you're a manager and a leader, right? So we have different ways of coping with acting, when we are in fear. So some of us get very directional and we start to point with a hand and talk, very decisive, and we kind of pretend that we know everything. Or what happens is what happened to me. I got very passive, very, very scared. I wanted to disappear. I didn't want any questions. I tried not to have eye contact. I'm a person that usually have a lot to say. I share my ideas, I'm open, I don't have any problem with sharing mistakes. But at this point, I lost all of that because I was acting in fear. I had so much responsibility, but so little mandate that I was totally crushed. And this is something that I meet with a lot of leaders. So I just came off a call with one of my clients who is this fantastic creative leaders in one of the world's most interesting designer brands. And she was also talking about, losing her voice as a leader. Because when you are a manager or a leader, pressure comes from everywhere, right? It comes from above, from your manager, it comes from colleagues, it comes from co-workers, it comes from, society. And you have all of these things that you pack into what you think you have to be, what you think you have to please. And you forget, your values. And you start to confuse your own values with the company values. That's not the same. Please let me remind you that is not the same. You are not this puppy doll, repeating what your company values are. You have values. You lead from your values. You find your voice as a leader. And I want you to reflect, where in your leadership do you turn to silence when you actually would have something to share? Is it you are silent around your mistakes? You are silent, around the really hard topics that you maybe should put on the table? Are you silent when someone asks you about an opinion because you wait until, some other person say first? Where in your leadership do you turn to silence? And what will it cost you to stay in silence? For me, it cost my health. All of the communication, all of the talk, all of the words that I was trying, not to speak because I didn't want visibility. I just wanted to be invisible. They all stacked up in my throat. And in the end, I got this big inflammation in my thyroid. And some people say, well, it's not connected, but I'm sure that all the language, all the words, all the communication that was stacked into me, I could feel it, in my throat. And in the end, I got really, really sick. What else? I put on weight. It was like an armor that I was wearing. In the end, I was 111 kilos of armor. I went into total burnout. I couldn't think, in the end I had colleagues and co-workers saying, you know what, Alex, I think maybe you're not well. Because I lost the sense of who I was, and that was the real cost of losing my voice, staying in silence. But I also found my voice again, and I used some really practical ways to find my voice again. And the first one was understanding human communication and starting to practice human communication. So I put some demands on communication. So when I communicate with you, I need to understand and feel and see that you hear me, okay? But that's not enough. I also need for you to understand me. This is one of the biggest frustrations, right? It's when you can see that someone hears you, but they don't want to understand you, or they don't understand you. This is where you can get so frustrated you start to cry, although you're not sad, you're angry. Start communication with, do you hear me? Do you understand me? But that's not enough either. I need you to confirm my emotions. I need you to confirm that feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling happy is okay. This is your first practice, to decide these are demands that you can put on another human being. Hear me, understand me, confirm my emotions. And you know what? It's a dance you have to dance. So you also have to promise the person next to you that you hear them, that you understand them, that you confirm their emotions. And this is how communication works. That's my first, biggest lesson. The second thing I want to send with you is to always start with connection before going into content. So what does that mean? It means we don't have to rush into topic. We will come to topic, to problem, but first of all we build relations, because what we know, what all the research show us is if we have a deep relation, we will be able to solve complex questions together. Think about that. Extraordinary. The deeper the conversation, the more complex question we can solve together. That's why we don't start with topic, we start with building relation. And the third one is also connected to complexity, because we live in such a complex world, right? And the only way to and drive change instead of trying to hide from it is creating a safe to fail environment. Create a safe to fail environment. So when you fail, you take the failure and you make learning out of it. You go from know-it-all organization, know-it-all leadership, to learn-it-all leadership. And this is something that you can practice in your personal life and in your professional life. You don't have to know it all. The only promise to yourself, to others, leading self, leading others, is that you are curious to learn. Communication, connection, before content. Think about complexity. Create safe to fail environments. This was all from my living room today. Next week, we will dive into the topic of performance versus presence. I will tell you the story in, a part of my life in my leadership when I was performing as hell and I thought I was overachieving, and the fact was I got totally the opposite in feedback. I will tell you about the cost of getting everything right instead of being curious. Tune in next week. If you like this, don't forget to comment, don't forget to share, don't forget that sharing is caring. Welcome to my living room. This was lesson 2 of 25 lessons from 25 years of leadership.